just want to start off, obviously you came into this position and, we finally have a police contract, so it must be good to kind of get that already going since it's been in the works for more than a year now.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things I wanted to see done, and they were working toward that before I got the job, so I think it was good timing on my part to come and see this to fruition. But I think it also gave them a new police chief. It kind of gave everyone a, hey, let's get this rolling, and if we're moving in a new direction, let's get this contract done, and that'll help do that.
And so stepping into this role and kind of, meeting that hurdle already, and now you have a 100-day plan. I mean, it seems like you want to get the ball rolling immediately to kind of see forward what we can do to fix in this department.
Yeah, so my goal when I got here was to get in uniform, to get the certification done, get that out of the way, and I did that pretty quickly while attending these meetings and meeting people. And so the first several weeks that I've been here have been about that. It's kind of sitting back and looking at the organization, trying to learn as much as I can. Even though I'm not fully there's been areas of the organization, some substations that I haven't even visited yet, so I need to get out and do that. So there's a lot going on. But this 100-day plan is kind of part of that, is saying to the community and the officers that this next 100 days is going to be about me being where you are, meeting you where you are, and talking about what's important to you, what you value, how you want, if it's community, what you want in your police, what is important to you, and then for the officers, what they see are challenges within the organization and recommendations on how we change those things.
And so did you make that plan based on, your time here? Like, how did you come together to see this is the 3 key priorities I need, and what did you learn so far?
Well, I think when you're going back to how that all came about is we cannot, you can come up with plans, and when they're not successful or they don't work out, because they won't. If it's your plan and you have not gotten or have not done outreach to the community, to your partners, whether it's media partners, whether it's other community members, businesses, all of those things, you're not going to be successful. So I have to hear what's important to other people, and you can't just assume those things. We have many different neighborhoods throughout Austin, and they're each unique. So what is that neighborhood's particular issue? What is important to them for them to want the police to know? And so as far as internally, for that officer, someone working behind a desk or working as an investigator or a detective somewhere is very different than the officer on the street. So it's about taking time to really listen to all of those voices and what they have to say. And at the end of that 100 days, whether it's through the surveys, through that feedback, through these community forums we're going to have and all these interactions we're going to have, coming back to the table and looking at those pieces, looking at the themes, what's developed, what's important, and then that's where that strategy is. We're going to start developing the strategies from there.
Gotcha. And so my initial question was, how did you come up with this plan? Did you already go out to the community? Did you see, okay, these are the things that they're worried about, talking to officers like, hey, this is what we need to work on?
Yeah, no, this is just how I solve problems. And so when I look at problems, it's about getting all that input, and I don't feel like I have enough input yet. I can make some changes, and I have made changes here, and those priorities, when they're pressing, are going to come up, because this is an organization, it's a policing organization, and it's a job that evolves daily, depending on what the crisis of the moment is. But this is about true change to the department and to the organization, and through that engagement of the community. Those have been my priorities from the beginning, looking at morale, looking at retention and recruiting, focusing on those community engagements, how we get that better, and then looking at the agency as a whole and what is our capacity to do that change. Those have been my focus, and this is just part of that, of how I get to that point of where I'm starting to develop that strategy.
I know one of your key priorities was that retention and recruitment, and of course, Austin Police Department has been in the spotlight for shorting staffages and getting that recruitment going. So how do you hope to attract officers to this department? With obviously the police contract did put a stump in the road when it came to trying to attract those officers.
Yeah, I think Austin is not suffering anything that another department across the country is not facing. So it's about policing itself has become a social issue, and so how do we change that narrative? How do we get people here that want to be part of a change? And so that's reaching a younger group. So we have to go where they are, and not just college campuses, but community centers, neighborhoods, all of those things where we can do that outreach. If we're looking for, we're saying we value women in the organization, and we joined a 30 by 30 initiative to have 30% women by 2030. Where are we going to do that? Where are we finding women that we are engaging with and talking about law enforcement? So those are things that we have to do as an organization.
And I know you also mentioned in your plan getting that community engagement and kind of having officers have a neighborhood action plan. Do you know what that looks like, how they're going to tackle that and really get community members in engage with them?
Yeah, so we're asking for the survey, and again, I know survey, everyone cringes and they think, oh my God, what is this again? But it's truly about every survey that's filled out, there'll be action taking on that. And so I give the example, if I come to you and I ask you, give me some examples of people I need to talk to in this neighborhood who know what's going on. You tell me, I'm going to go follow up with them, and then I'm going to circle back to you to say, hey, thanks for that information. This is what I was told, and this is what I'm going to be doing about it. So it's truly that 360 degrees and how we're closing the loop on issues. And I think that will get us where we need to go as far as that engagement.
And can you talk about the other plans of action? I know you mentioned write-outs, showing up, doing town halls, getting more involved with council. Just talk about that.
I think too, all of those partners are important. Media, that's another thing, setting up something with the media where we're talking more. The council, what their priorities are. We have 10 districts, and they each have their own priorities, what's important to them in their district. So how does the police, how do I work with them, ensuring communication with them when we're receiving feedback or we know something's happening in that neighborhood? I want to turn to the council members and say, hey, this is important in your community. I want you to hear about this from the police first before the media has that, so you can work there. So that is that form of communication, as well as the officers knowing what's occurring within the organization before they're hearing it from somewhere else. All of those things we're working on and we're going to get better at.
And I know you also mentioned partnerships with organizations. Is there any organizations you have in mind that you've already reached out to or plan to reach out to? Because obviously there's so many people who are involved in the community and kind of look up to these organizations to get some information. And obviously there are ones that are, pro-police and others that don't have the trust.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that is absolutely something I will work with and sit down at the table with anybody. I mean, building trust is a two-way street, and we have to be heard and we have to listen. And I'm willing to do that. And I think it doesn't matter if you look at police and you think we don't need police services, we need to reduce the budget, we need to do those things. Those are important voices because that's their perspective, and I want to listen to that perspective. But it's also important for us to go out to the other areas, and I want to hear who I should be talking to. So when you talk about community groups that I need to be listening to, I want to hear who is that. And when you tell me, I'm going to go follow up with them and hear what they have to say. But a lot of people have already been reaching out. I've got a full calendar of meetings. And when you're looking at Hispanic outreach, you're looking at the unhoused, you're looking at a Madrid of things that are important to a lot of people. I'm going to be there. And it's a lot of work and it's time consuming, but it is important for us to get this right when we're looking at 100 days. And this will go well beyond 100 days. This isn't just stop listening after 100 days, but this is about listening to what people have to say and the voices there, and then coming back and we start building our strategy on how these things are going to be changing within the organization.
Gotcha. And so I know another thing is response times. I mean, does that come hand in hand with recruitment and retention, or how does that approach work? Because there's been so many reports of people saying they've been waiting for 30 minutes to 3 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you fix that? Because some people say that I've talked to said I don't know if I even want to call the police because we don't know if they're going to come in time.
Right. No, that is extremely concerning, and I hate to hear that because it is very rare for someone to even call the police. Within a lifetime, most people never call the police. And so when they do, to be told that, hey, one, we're not coming out, or it may be 2 or 3 hours before we are coming out, that's just not tolerable to me. And so how do we change that? And so one is looking at the amount of people that we have on patrol. I think currently we have over 538 officers that are on patrol. Do we need to increase that, and how does that look? So all of these things are what that 100-day plan is about, is kind of looking at the organization internally, focusing on what needs to change, getting those ideas, looking at the data, looking at the things that support those things. That's how we're going to make changes within the organization. Community-wise, when we're looking at all of those different and hearing from all of those voices, how do we get better as an organization to truly engage the community? Because it's not just coffee with a cop. It is not just that. It is about problem solving together, identifying true problems within a neighborhood, and then working together for solutions. And it's not just police, because crime is not just a police problem. It is everybody's problem. And so when you work together on those solutions and you bring in other city entities and other city government, as well as those organizations and then the people that work there, that is when you see things happen within these communities.
And speaking to that, I mean, if this is a little redundant, but on top of response times, it's certain areas that were left without patrols that we've also reported on. I mean, is that something that goes hand in hand with also speaking to what do we need to do to get those patrols in that area so they're not left unpatrolled?
Yeah, so when you're looking at crime and you're getting an overall picture of where crime is, of course you're going to have more officers in areas where there's more crime. And so does that leave the areas that are normally safe with fewer officers? Yes, it does. But let's get to a point where we're addressing the crime and we're able to, it is a very small percent of locations within the city of Austin that are where our crime is occurring. And so when we can start being precise about where we're going and the officers that we have there, and we're making these changes and we're addressing these problems, that's going to free up officers where we're able to put them in those other locations that they need to be.
Gotcha. And I know you mentioned prevention efforts and kind of, I can't remember the name right now, but it was a regional center that you were talking about bridging that gap with, you don't mind?
No, right ahead. I'm drawing a blank myself.
I had written it down. The Austin Regional Intelligence Center as part of prevention efforts. Can you explain what that is and how those efforts will be tackled?
I think that's just looking at our intel and how we use it. I think you have to be very careful when you're looking at facial recognition and you're looking at things certainly across the country and how that's been used, not to the benefit of the person. And you've had some people that have been arrested on bad intel. But it is about looking at things that we can use as a tool. It is everything, right? So how do we look at open source data, as well as software that's available to the police to use, and use that in an equitable way. And then we're looking at, we know domestic terrorism is on the rise within this country, and so how do we look at domestic terrorism as an organization? We look at the crime that we're dealing with, outside of that, with drug activity, all of those things. We have to have intel that tells us and leads us to suspects, but we have to be equitable and just in the way that we use that intel, and then as transparent as we can about that. And of course, when you're dealing with investigations, some of that can't be open, but to me, it's about using it as a tool, one tool at a time, to lead to the arrest or to lead to an investigation that causes a safer community.
Gotcha. And I know obviously this is all plans in place. When are you starting? Like, when does the first day start?
I think, did we said today?
Everything's launching today.
Okay.
Today, gotcha.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know you mentioned like the first ground running, you're going to start, implementing a lot of stuff. So what is the first thing you want to do? Like, we need to do this right now.
I think we need to start getting the surveys out, which I think we've done to the officers here internally, and I also want to do with the officers for them to send that to their family. And I want to create a mechanism instead of them just forwarding it to their family. We're going to create a survey for the families to do. I think it's important when you talk about officer wellness, how families are feeling about things. This is a difficult job, and to send your spouse or your loved one out every day the door and not knowing what they're going to be encountering is extremely anxiety inducing, right? So I want to hear from the families of officers and what they want to hear. And it has been a tough 4 years here, and so I would think that when you're looking at relationships and you're looking at the anxiety and the stress that officers' families feel, how can we help with that? How can we as an agency help with that anxiety and help with that stress and lower that? So I'm really interested, and I want to hear from the families of the officers as well.
Gotcha. And I understand, Austin's a very big city, and sometimes people say, well, they act like a small city. So how do we not do that anymore?
Yeah, I don't think there's a problem with acting like a small city. I think I like that. I think when you look at Austin is a large city, and this is going to be, I think of that whole bear analogy of one bite at a time, right? It's truly just getting in there, one meeting, one community meeting, one interaction at a time, and recognizing that they're all important. And so that's why those surveys, and if you can't come to one of the forums, you can't come to a town hall, but you're able to do that survey and just to give your feedback, every voice needs to be heard. And the loudest voices, I want to hear those as well, but there's a lot more voices that need to be heard. And I think giving them opportunity on just a survey, it's 7 questions. You don't have to answer all 7, just answer ones that's important to you. I want to take that feedback, and those are things that we're going to be making changes off of.
And how are these surveys being distributed? Is it online, mail-in?
It's online, yeah. So we have an online, and then our Facebook, we're going to have that. It's up for the officers on our SharePoint that the officers have, and we'll be able to share those links with other people just to truly get all the feedback that we can.
And how's that outreach, going? I mean, for people who don't have the technology or don't know these surveys are even happening.
Yeah, I think that's going to be important for you. You're here, and to put that information out, and we have different partners that can share that information. And when we have these town halls and we have events, to have a mechanism there that maybe they can walk people through to do that survey in person, whether it's through a couple laptops there that they can utilize, or just paper surveys. We'll figure something out to make it easy for everyone to do, because it truly is about hearing those voices, and then knowing that this survey and what we find here, you're going to hear back from every point, every question. We're going to talk about at the end of this 100 days what we plan on doing from that question.
So 100 days, it feels like it's a long time, but it can go by very quickly. We know a year can go by very fast. And so, it's an ambitious plan. And so how do you hope, you said it's not going to be done after 100 days, it's going to keep going no matter what. So, do you think you can accomplish everything in these 100 days?
I think it's not ambitious. It's ambitious in that it's going to be time consuming, and it's going to be a lot of work for me and the people around me that are fantastic and do fantastic work every day. But the real work's going to begin after the 100 days. When we're coming back to the table and we're looking at all the data and we're looking at all the input that we had, and this is when we're going to start building those strategies to address these issues, because we're going to see themes throughout. You're going to start hearing the same thing over and over again, what people want. So what are those 4 or 6 things, and how do we start moving toward fixing them? And so that's when the real work is going to begin, is after that 100 days and the strategies that we put in place. But I have a great team here, and I feel confident that what we encounter and the challenges that we have a very supportive city manager, and I think bringing those challenges, if it requires his attention, I'm sure that he'll be supportive of those things. But it's really about looking at that information after that 100 days, and then just building the foundation from that and how we make those changes.
Gotcha. And how are you feeling about this? Kind of putting this in place, already launching it, and kind of giving Austinites that little bit of hope, that they've been seeing for the last year when it comes to the contract, when it comes to the lack of response times, when it comes to the lack of patrol. To give them that hope. Yeah,
and I want them to know that I hear them. That and that I'm listening. And that we're going to make some changes to address it. If we're looking at, believe me, that these response times they are not appropriate, and they are not something that I'm proud of, and it's not something that I don't think the officers are proud of. So we need to make changes. How do we make changes, and what does that look like to get those response times? These 300, I feel confident that our recruiting efforts are going to pay off, and they are going to increase. But that's still a few years off before we can get those 300 officers there. So what do we do in the meantime? We have to make some changes, and if those are looking at units and changing units, those are things that are on the table here for us to look at. We have to get response times down, community engagement up, customer service. All of those things are very important to me.
Gotcha. And I know you mentioned that, it's a nationwide thing, staffing shortages,
Yep.
This department is no stranger to that. But when it comes to, addressing all these issues, do you see any hurdles or anything that you're like, okay, well, this needs to be tackled first, or this is going to take a long time to get there?
Yeah, I think the contract is going to be very helpful with that, to be able to go out and recruit, and not just from not having a contract and being able to say to someone, hey, this is what the next 5 years is going to look like in the city when you're looking at finances and you're looking at your benefits, but it's about the opportunity from a contract. They are now able to travel to other states to recruit and to give testing and those type of things. So that's very powerful to imagine going to New York City to recruit, and you're able to give a test right there. So here we're going to be at this community center from this time, come take this test, and you're able to do that. Without a contract, we weren't able to do that. So it has just opened up the door, just that alone, to be able to do those things.
And I know, obviously, rebuilding that trust in the city, it takes time. It's going to take a lot of effort, and you already mentioned tons of efforts already by officers. But how do you, as a police chief, hope to gain that trust? Coming in to the city as a new person, and coming into pretty much a department that's faced a lot of turmoil.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it starts today, right? It starts with this 100-day plan and kind of looking at what's important to people, what they're, building that trust. We have to build equity with the community. I have to build equity with these officers so they can trust me that I truly have their best interest at heart, and I want their families to know that I do have their best interest at heart as their loved one. But the community is about building equity, and you do that one interaction at a time. And that's, I'm not going to solve everything. We're not going to solve everything, but working together, we can solve a lot. And we can address a lot of issues and problems and truly problem solve together. And I think that's when we're going to see some changes throughout the community. And bad things will happen. They will. We are a major city. We're a big city. Bad things are going to happen. And so when we can look at when bad things do happen, when we have built that equity up with the community, we'll see rewards from that, because that's when we're back out there and we're back talking. We're talking to people that trust us. I've seen that firsthand, and that's what happens is people believe, hey, this may have been one bad incident, but the majority of the officers here and the APD itself is a good organization. And so how do we move past this? How do we deal with this and move past it and grow from it?
And at the end of your plan, you kind of gave a kind of get to know you. And I know you are a police chief right now, but you're also a human being. And for people who are watching this and, you know, they want to like, well, who is she? What would you tell them?
Yeah, man, I am someone that wants to be out in the community. I like to talk to people. I like to get to know people. I think it's crazy that when I walk in somewhere and I'm out of my uniform, people recognize me. That's weird to me, but I love it. I mean, I just love, Austin has got so many cool places to be. I was just at One in a Millions, which was fantastic. That was, I was told to go there. So any food recommendations, bring them my way. I love, anytime someone gives me a food recommendation, I'm out trying it. But it's just a great culture here, and I want to take in more live music. I love music, and just being around people. It just feeds me. I love it.
Gotcha. Is there anything else you want to tell Austinites?
No, just that I'm glad to be here, and I'm excited to put this plan in action. I'm excited to hear what they have to say, good, bad, ugly, all of it. I want to hear it, because you're not going to hurt my feelings. We don't move past things and we don't grow if we don't know what we're dealing with, and we have to be honest about what's occurred, and we have to be honest about how we're going to move forward.